welcome to the Year in Review and Game Changers for 2023. I'm Brooke, Business Advisor for the Business Connect program, which is a dedicated and personalised New South Wales government program. It provides advice, events, resources to help you start, run or grow your small business. So let's consider the start of 2022. January saw the Australian Open kick off. And Novak Djokovic has his visa cancelled for not having his COVID vaccination. Do we remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Novak.
So Novak. He landed, he went straight to the immigration detention. He commenced legal action, and then his visa was reinstated, and then it was taken away from him. And you can imagine by this point, he's just going, what is going on? We thought that was a really good way to describe how business owners felt in January as well. They were doing the, I'm here, I'm sort of here, I'm ready to open. I'm opening? No, I'm closing. I don't know what I'm doing. So that was how a lot of business owners felt in January. So in February 2022, our borders opened to vaccinated people across the world. It had been closed since March 2020. It's a long time. So while people had started moving, supply chains hadn't, and still haven't in a lot of cases. Business owners are still dealing with these impacts. So transport costs are increasing, there's inconsistency in sourcing, there's a problem trying to find staff, customer satisfaction challenges, and all industries are experiencing this. So retailing, manufacturing, professional services, it's across the board. February also saw a flood crisis in New South Wales and Queensland. Lismore saw the worst floods in its history. Everyone remember that? Yep. When will the rain stop was Google's most searched phrase. Interestingly, the most searched keyword was Wordle. Who got into Wordle this year? Yes, love it. So business owners have been encouraged to be resilient, be innovative, adapt, overcome. And don't get me wrong, they're incredibly important cornerstones of business. But it's very hard to focus on when your basic hierarchy of needs is literally floating down the road in front of you. So we don't want to make light of the floods that happen and impact people's lives as well as their businesses. It's very heavy things that a lot of people have dealt with this year. So the year kept on bumping along. We had an election that I really shouldn't talk about. And towards the tail end of the year, we lost our queen and we gained a king. And it made us think, wow, the royal family really could teach us a thing or two about working from home and flexible working conditions. So it's been really hard as an employer and an employee to navigate that. Who here's found it really tricky? Yeah. So many people are just struggling. It's very on either side. I just want to work from home, or I need to be around the people. It's very polarising. So the royal family, apart from teaching us a thing or two about that, I'm sure have had their own business model and culture change. So the decentralised operations that we're all dealing with are impacting the digital comms dominance and the changing cost structures of our business. So there are many positives and many negatives about it, but you're a room full of very smart people, and I'm sure you've made your own mind up around this topic. So in September, Optus advised that they had a data breach which affected over 10 million current and former customers. Go Optus. So cyber attacks are quite normal, unfortunately, now, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But how it impacts small businesses is really quite profound. So reputational risk is massive. Cash flow when you're dealing with ransomware, the disruption to the business is so big. So cost of living is rising. Business confidence is giving us all a lot of side-eye. But we've got this, right? So we do know how to adjust, and we do know how to make our lives work. We do know that we can innovate in our business, and we need to find that energy to keep adding value to our customers. That's what drives us all. I'm pretty sure that's what drives everyone here in this room. So a fellow named Fred Rogers once said, when I was a boy, I would see scary things in the news. And my mum would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people that are helping. No matter what our problems in the world are, climate change, war, COVID, attacks on human rights, political division, there's always helpers to be found. So sometimes you just need to focus on how you can be a helper. Our team is humbled to be helpers of regional businesses, and we don't say that from a point of martyrdom, but from a point of pride, but that's what we exist to do. So we want to thank you tonight for enabling us to value our immediate community across New South Wales and through the Business Connect program as a whole. So thank you very much and for being here tonight. So it's time to meet and hear from our speakers. Welcome.
Thank you.
So it's never been harder to read a crystal ball than it is now. So talking about future trends is really tricky. But first, Andy, tell us a little bit about what floats your boat in business.
Look, one thing I love about business, and the reason I created my company around is built around technology. And I see this as a great enabler, especially when we're talking about regions. The funny thing about things like the NBN and such like that's sort of gone out around the world, and we all love and hate when that thing works or doesn't work. But the regions have been probably, in many cases, been better serviced with some of those areas. Not necessarily all of them, but it does sort of level the playing field. And to me, the key thing that I like doing is I love empowering people to be able to leverage this technology and these systems in a way and show them what's possible. And then come back and show me what they've created. Right?
Yeah.
Look at this piece of magic that they've created. And if you think about it, if we look at all the technology systems we have today, when they work, it feels like pure magic. And this is what I like bringing to the world.
Nice one, Ed. I like it. Hello, Paulina.
Hello.
Welcome. You add so much value to our community, I wouldn't even know where to start to introduce you. So how about you have a crack at what inspires you and motivates you to do your job?
No pressure, Brooke. Look, you're being very generous there. I'm a pretty simple person, and I like to simplify everything for our clients. And quite basically, what I love most about helping small businesses is helping them achieve their goals. I fundamentally believe that behind every successful business is a really courageous person, and I fully admire courage, and I think those courageous people deserve to get what they want. So that's what I do at the Business Centre. I've been doing this for quite a while now, and I'm a creative, so for me to be doing any one thing for this amount of time is absolutely amazing to me and everyone that knows me. But I'm only here because I absolutely love what I do, and every day is a challenge. We meet amazing people, and we're really lucky to play a small part in them achieving their goals. So yeah, that's me, I think.
Thank you. She's also one of the world's best chefs. Like, if you get a chance to be in this lady's kitchen, you're winning. Exactly.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you.
So let's start with the question, shall we? So with the health, social services, tourism and hospitality sector still really being impacted heavily by COVID, Andy, what do you see as some game changers that are sort of tech solutions that will support business sustainability in that space?
One of the biggest things we've seen is for many things, like if you just need to renew a prescription or something like that, instead of going to actually visit your doctor, we're seeing a lot of telehealth opportunities come into play. And especially for the regions where you may not necessarily have a doctor in your local town, or you need to engage with a locum, or even a specialist in coming down into Sydney, even from Newcastle, making that trek down to Sydney can be a bit of an impact to your day. So, you know, the advances with technology, and this is stuff I've been working on for 20, 25 years, right? And is now just considered commonplace, where we can pick up a phone and you know, have a video call with someone to be able to explain what's going on. That's not only saves time, but it gives you access to things in a very fundamentally different way.
Yeah, and e-scripts and things like that.
Yeah,
There's a lot of ways.
I think a good example of that is my wife will often ask me, can you pick up this prescription for me? And she'll send me the message for the e-script. I go in the pharmacy and I can collect it for her without her having to take time out of her day.
Yeah, nice and easy. Paulina, so what sort of innovative solutions do you think are out there to support those sectors who are so tired at this point?
Yeah, so I love all the tech solutions. You know, there's so many digital solutions in business that can really help. But on the other side of that, the people, I get really sad when I think about all of these, all of these industries, and they've just hit wave after wave after wave, and they continue. Firstly, I'd like to just talk to everyone as customers, and I'm sure as business owners, you're in that space where you identify that these sectors are doing it tough. So I remind myself continuously when I go out to, and in any of these sectors, that, let's have a little bit more patience than usual. So I think we can prop them up and really be grateful for what they're doing. But as far as those employees themselves, I would love to see more focus, I think, on the leaders in those industries and supporting them in leadership, in more ways that they can support their staff, because we're in this for a little bit longer. This is not going away anytime soon. And there's a lot of digital solutions, and we've seen a lot of industries incorporate those and adapt, but we've still fundamentally got people who are really spent. So I would love to see some more attention, I think, at middle management, really supporting them so they can support their employees.
Yeah, there's a good point there in terms of the people and the technology. As a technologist, it's very easy to get carried away with, hey, there's a tech solution for that. Got to remember that all of this stuff is just servicing and helping people connect. And who's over Zoom, right? Totally overloaded with Zoom, right? So if you have too much of this stuff, you get burnt out as well. So it's got to find that balance.
Absolutely, yeah.
Can I also add to that too? I think everything's changed. So when you were reading through the year that just was, Brooke, it was, oh my gosh, it doesn't sound too good, does it? But there's a lot of great things to talk about as well, and a lot of people are doing really fabulously. But
I'm the darkness to your light.
Yeah, no, you really are not. But I really, I'm finding it. So I've been in business since my mid-20s, and I've been a business advisor for nearly 20 years. I'm finding it really difficult to predict stuff. Once upon a time, you could see what was coming. Oh my gosh, I'm getting surprised all the time, as are our industries and our businesses. So I'm really advising the businesses that I talk to just bring it back, and we'll be talking a little bit about, that fundamental stuff. But if we can peel things away that we don't need, that's okay, and really focus on what do our customers want. And I think just be a little bit kinder to ourselves. But I've got a real thing with that middle management. I think we can really help them in that space.
Absolutely, 100%. So moving away from COVID, so we've started to see a shift in the willingness of paying for increasing advertising costs on large social platforms and search platforms. Do you see the way SMEs reach their markets changing or not in 2023?
I think what we've been seeing is more and more people are getting oversaturated with advertising and such. Recently travelled to Perth to visit family that I hadn't seen for about 3.5 years. And I remember a moment when my daughter was watching the mainstream news, and she was just stunned by what she was seeing in terms of what the amount of information coming through, and even then the adverts that were coming in, because we don't have any free-to-air TV connected at home. It's all Netflix on-demand type stuff. So there's going to be more and more people that are disconnecting from, say, mainstream media, etc., from that advertising point. So you're not going to be able to get that penetration. But also on the social media side, we're just getting bombarded with more and more information that we're just scrolling past. It's not getting that traction. So you have to be much more targeted in terms of who your ideal customer is. And don't try to go out beyond that. Find who you really want to target and support, and try to build communities around that. So it's going to be a mix of both advertising and building that community structures around there to try to get that connection. So that people are then promoting your brand. That's more powerful than any dollar you're going to spend on these big advertising platforms that just want to take as much money out of you as possible.
For sure. Paulina?
You're speaking my language, Andy. And absolutely, I think bringing it back, and when you were saying, Andy, about community, it's about building those relationships. So yes, those platforms, Some of us have to work with them, but I would love if we have to focus on the platforms where our clients are, right? So, but we can mitigate some risk by looking at what do we have more control over. So, with those of you with websites and things, you have a lot more control over your website, and you can continue to bring people back to that. And of course, then you've got that face to face. But it's looking at where are your clients, building those really strong relationships. And I've got this from one of my colleagues, and I use it all the time now. I think I say it every time I meet a client. But people will get to know you, they'll get to like you, they'll get to trust you, and then they'll advocate for you. And so often, especially when we're starting out, using a lot of those platforms and things, we expect them to be trusting us and advocating for us straight away. And building that trust, letting them know you, that's a longer game, and you can have more control over that by face-to-face stuff with your website, getting out there and really speaking to people who care about what you have to say, not just to the masses. But I get really cranky with these big platforms that are just changing the rules all the time. It's a real burden on business. So if you can take back, I keep using that word control. I've got to find a nicer word than control, don't I? But I think
ownership.
It's ownership. Yeah. If you can bring your business back to things that you have more control over, and it's really targeted, I think we've got to win that way.
And just be mindful of what your business is. If, I went down the path of Facebook advertising for my business. My business is B2B. Sure, I can get eyeballs on there, but that's not really what's going to get a bang for buck in terms of my advertising spend. You've got to calculate, for every click I get, and it's cost me $1,000 to get one lead out of that. Was that worth my while? So make sure you're very mindful of that. So for me, most of my social media presence is all about just brand recognition, and I do just that through organic stuff, right? Just posting every single day on different platforms where those eyeballs are, so that when someone does connect with me with my brand, they go, oh yeah, I've seen that everywhere, right? But that's not through advertising. Be mindful of where you're spending that money. There's maybe better ways that you can go and acquire that customer.
You guys have been so kind to these large social platforms and search platforms.
I can say so much more, but I'm trying to be polite.
Oh, look at
The other thing too is that, I was mentioning earlier, just one last little bit, sorry.
Sure.
I'm one of those people, I hate ads when I go around on websites. They drive me insane. So I install an ad blocker. Shuts all that out, don't see it. I did that for my dad recently when I was visiting. He went from a page that was so full of noise that he couldn't see it to down to one picture and 2 paragraphs of content. The rest was advertising junk.
Yep.
So it's eating itself. So be mindful of that. People are going to put more and more of this stuff in.
And that leads me to the next question. The Australian Senate Influence of International Digital Platforms inquiry, that's a bit hard to say, has begun, and the report is due on the last sitting day of 2023. So the purpose of the inquiry is to explore the degree to which multinationals like Amazon exerting power and influence over markets to the detriment of Australian democracy. So let's discuss that side of things. Market shares, hardware, software, choice, competitors, proprietary algorithms. What are your thoughts?
Big tech is consolidating, right? Hands up who doesn't use either Google or Microsoft for your email platforms. Is anyone in the room that's not using one of those platforms? One.
Go, you good thing.
2. That's it, right? So the majority of people, and Microsoft themselves has quite a dominance, Google has a dominance here. And they control a lot of what is going on. Facebook, you put your comments on Facebook, they've got these algorithms that are affecting that. Amazon is doing the same thing and impacting your ability for your product to be surfaced and made visible to people. So they're controlling those algorithms. They're controlling what you see. You've heard the concept, the echo chamber, right? Where you surround yourself by friends, etc., and the Facebooks of the world, the Twitters and the LinkedIns, all the social media is doing that. But the same thing's happening on your Amazon platforms. And now they're controlling your ability to make money.
Would you like to see some sort of regulation come down on these companies around market share?
It would be just more that they pay their due in this country, right? Most of them don't pay tax here at all.
Yeah, I
They don't have a social license to operate here. They have these operating entities overseas where they do trading credits between the whole thing. It's just funny money going between everything.
Funny money, I like it.
Yeah, well, it is. It is. It's like they're paying for IP or intellectual property rights to use something, and they're just offshoring all the cash, and they're taxed. They pay less tax than everyone in this room.
What are your thoughts, Paulina?
Yeah, it's really frustrating, isn't it? And there's that word control again, and absolutely they have control. I would love to see regulations and things, but I don't like being a pessimist, but I really don't see the out in this. Like, I just hesitated when I went to say that. Some countries in the world
Don't censor yourself.
some countries in the world completely censor what's happening. And of course, we wouldn't want Australia to look like that. But I think it would be great to have some money coming in here, but to me, it's not the money, it's that control. And I don't have the answer, Brooke, because I'm not sure how we're going to do it. I mean, Amazon, gosh, at the beginning of the year, I think their economy was larger than Spain and heading towards Italy's. You know, we're just talking huge influence here.
Yeah, and they're all taking a
to-do
cut.
list, break the internet. Yep.
Yeah.
It's like you put something on one of the big app stores. Those organisations are going to take 30% straight off whatever money you make on there. Amazon's doing the same, right? Everything that you're trying to earn, it's just like they're taking it for what you're doing all the work. You're advertising, you're putting your product up there, you're using their marketplace. Yeah, sure, they're doing some of the drop shipping and collecting some of the funds, but they're just taking all that money for you.
And it goes so much further than that, though, doesn't it? You know, it's that the
corner store.
influence that they have over what we do and how we do it.
Exactly.
The algorithms are taking over. They're controlling what we see.
They're trying to control how we think.
Okay, let's...
we can go down that rabbit hole, but yes. Yeah, it is. It's influence.
It is.
It's massive
it's
influence
huge.
for larger organisations that have more power than the largest countries on the planet.
Yep.
And it's controlled by a individual organisation. It's crazy.
It's disgusting.
Nice light one. Thanks, Brooke.
No worries.
That was an easy one.
I bring the light.
No social problems there.
So we all know that there's been an increase in the cost of living. Interest rates are moving up, high debt levels across the country. So what happens when people can't cop their interest rates anymore? So a majority of small businesses really rely on their customers' discretionary spending to actually do business with them. So what do you guys see in this scenario playing out? If interest rates keep rising, discretionary spending is limited, obviously, what are ways that small businesses can really mitigate that risk into the future?
I think businesses, as they always have, but more so now, really need to focus on what value do they offer. So being very, very clear about who their customer is, so who finds the most value in what they have, and focus on that messaging. It's still, and I think because of all the platforms that we use, it's harder for small businesses, but I see so many businesses not having clear messaging, not having that clarity around the value that they offer to that customer, and being very, very clear about who their customer is. And you know, maybe I'm being Captain Obvious here, but I see it all the time, not being clear about who that customer is, because if we can't clearly identify who they are, how on earth do we know what they want? And how do we know how they want to be communicated, where they want to be communicated, when they want to be communicated with? So if we can really demonstrate that value and be speaking specifically to those people, we're streets ahead. And there is, you know, people are going to pull back, but there's a lot of people who are not as impacted. There's still people spending. So we just have to be smarter and I think reassessing, really looking at what we're doing. And one thing that I'm still seeing is a lot of people are coming in with ideas and that they had before COVID. Everything's different. It really, really is. So reassess that bias that you might have. It might be something that you've brought forward with you from before COVID, and just take the time to sit down and have a look at, what am I selling? what's the real value to my customers, not the features, the benefits, what are they going to get out of what I'm offering? What will happen if I don't offer this? And then how am I different? So give them a reason to come to you.
Yep. Then there's the wonderful product to market fit journey that you can go on to make sure you're meeting that need. It's an ever-evolving process, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Keep iterating.
Yep.
I'm going to take it from a tech perspective. Why? I'm a tech guy, right?
Shocking.
Shocking, mate. But there's a lot of things we can do here, and we can look at, when you talked about features, no one cares. No one cares about your features. What they care about is the pain that you can take away from them. And can you do that in a remarkable way? Right? Can you do something that, for example, a client was late for a meeting because their water heater blew up, right? So they've got no hot water heater. Now that plumber is in a prime position that they call because there's an urgent need, right? What urgent need, what pain are you addressing? The other thing too, just coming onto the tech basis, is if you've got your website or your advertising, etc., and back on those messages, if you've got multiple things that you're asking them to do, people aren't going to choose. Give them one choice. One choice. Click a button, book in a conversation, book a meeting, or the only other obvious choice is to not do anything, right? So they've got one choice. If you've got multiple messages on your website, you're just making it hard. Make it as easy as possible for people to say yes. Show your value, demonstrate your value. Back on the tech stuff, we talk about, there's an app for that. My wife complains that there's thousands of apps on the phone. Oh, yet another app, yet another password. And we'll get to that one in a minute. But this is a big problem. So for a lot of the organisations I look at is consolidate what you're doing and seeing if you can reduce some of that functionality. Don't pay for 15 apps that you don't need. Get rid of them. Can you consolidate that down once? Simplify your operations. Not only that is that going to save you time, hours a day, but it's going to save you money.
We created
Costs.
a digital integration canvas so people could do just that. Instead of having this massive stack, they could actually really ascertain what the item needed to do for them to add value to their customer, and then how they could condense all of
I've
that.
lost count of how many times I've spoken with a customer and within the first month saved them $5,000 a month because they were spending stuff on things they didn't need that they already had.
For me, it's Uber Eats.
Yeah, that works.
I need it to go away, like really. Yeah,
Convenience. People will pay for convenience as well. That's a great example.
100%.
So, what are you doing to really add value, take away pain, or create a massive amount of, value or convenience?
Yeah.
And
Solving the problem. Yeah.
really, it's about people. I'm a tech guy, but my focus is about people. How can I engage you guys to leverage all of this to do more? Because it's people will buy from people. Doesn't matter how big the organisation is.
Absolutely.
So how are you solving their problem?
Okay. Well, let's shuffle over to... Oh, we have a...
Oh, awesome!
Mr. Lloyd Valentine.
It's probably not for me, it's for her.
You were mentioning focusing on the values side of things of the business. And there's an obvious trend of more and more people buying products or services for more than just a product or service, for other reasons as well. And it's quite topical because I was chatting to someone tonight who's looking at becoming a social enterprise. So just wondering what your thoughts are in terms of how businesses can look to become social enterprises and what opportunities are there for organisations to
Do you want to
benefit themselves, but
Take it.
other organisations, people in the community.
Do you want me to
Well, you can start.
jump into
There you
that?
go. If you
I
like.
get a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
bit passionate
yeah.
about social enterprises. So
Brooke's thing.
a lot of people really consider their business structure through many different frames. And just being idealistic about your business structure is not really the way to go. But if you really genuinely want to set up a social enterprise, make sure you start with the security around the business first. So really look at that corporate structure, really set, like one thing I know that Healthy Change Challenge has done as a business who's a social enterprise, they're very, very clear about what their objectives are and how they communicate back with their customers in a really transparent way. So being a social enterprise is more just going, look, I'm doing something good. you have a few more hurdles around grant accessibility, which is something people need to consider as well. It's a lot of considerations that need to go into the conversation, is all I'm trying to say before I hand over to Paulina. Don't get stuck in idealism when it comes to a business structure.
And I think it's wonderful that businesses want to give back to community. And I think we have a really informed clientele, generally speaking. And these days, our clients want to know who we are, what we stand for, what we value, that we're doing good stuff. And they want us to prove that we're doing good stuff. But absolutely, any business that wants to give back, and we get so many people in that are of that ilk, which is great. I love working with those clients. But we have to build a really solid business model first. So it's a bit like the oxygen mask in an aeroplane, you know, when you've got a minor on your lap, the adult gets the oxygen first. So let's build you a really solid business structure and to have really clear goals, and then we can move to that space.
I'll just touch on one thing.
Please.
You know, we talked about earlier about the big tech giants coming into Australia, not paying tax and all that. And I mentioned the word or a phrase, social license, right? If you're operating in the community, what's your social license to be there? Obviously, there's the roads, the infrastructure, the people within that community that is supporting your ability to operate. So what are you doing and being genuine about it? It can't be greenwashing, which I heard the other day the government was talking about, all those companies trying to get their green credentials by trading stuff so that they look like they're environmentally friendly. So what are you doing that is genuine, that's authentic when you're sort of going down this path? If there's no authenticity there, people will see through that faster than anything else. You know, so how is that connecting? How's that developing your social license so that we don't become, you know, and that's how you can compete against these big tech giants. You have that social license. You're going to build that community. You're going to build that group of people that want to be part of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Does that help?
remotely answer your question, Lou?
Yeah, no, it's just about generating ideas.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so the next question's around the understandable cyber focus for all businesses, but particularly small businesses at the moment. So we're seeing a change of requirements across the board for organisations like ourselves. So we're a not-for-profit. We deal with state and federal governments and some large corporates as well. So over the last 6 months, we've been going through something called Right Fit for Risk, or RFFR. Has anyone heard of that? Go Trish.
Not the term, but I've seen others face it.
Yeah, so RFFR, it's a process of accrediting external IT systems and businesses to protect against cyber threats. It's a massive investment into your business, time, effort, resources. It's been quite the mission for us, and we've been lucky enough to have certain skills within the team to be able to do this. But that's made us tick boxes around being preferred suppliers for government grants and things like that. So my question, that's some context, but the question for you guys is, do you see this requirement rolling out to businesses across the board? How soon in the future, if you do?
I'm seeing it already.
Yep.
Right. Any business that is dealing with any government entity is going to be asked, if they haven't already, when they're actually engaging with that organisation, to go through a checklist. You know, what's your compliance, what's your security posture around that? It's all, if you go to the cyber.gov.au site, there's information talking about this thing called Essential 8.
Yes.
Right, Essential 8 talks about all the different things that you can do to try to protect. And there's multiple levels depending on how deep you want to go. And, you know, having gone through IRAP processes and other compliance stuff into defence and other government agencies, it's not necessarily that you have to tick every box. That's not the point. The point is making sure you've got a plan and understanding of when you don't comply, what you're doing about it and how you're closing the gap. Right? So previously, all of this stuff used to be the large businesses. They're the only ones that had to care about it. They're the only ones that had to report when they had the breach. Thanks Optus, thanks Medibank. We've seen that in the news. This stuff and what the government is talking about, and they're looking around the world at the EU and the US in terms of the privacy frameworks and such like is going to come down to micro businesses.
Yeah.
Solopreneurs, one person in your organisation are going to have an awareness of this. It's not a case of you can put your head in the sand. It's going to happen. It's a case of when. So this is probably going to likely happen in the next 12 months. But for some organisations, if you're dealing with government, it's happening now.
Sure is.
So look at Essential 8, look at ISO 27001, look at those compliance. There's a lot of support, there's a lot of information, but, as mentioned, it's a lot of effort. So start preparing for that. Ask your IT provider if you have one already,
Or your
what you're
business
doing.
advisor.
Or your business advisor, because it's not just a technology problem.
No, it's a culture.
Yeah. The weakest link is the people. Everyone in this room is the weakest link in terms of that whole thing. One person making a small mistake, and this is what happened with Telstra just recently, just made an honest mistake, missed something, didn't tick the right button. Suddenly, 130,000 records are exposed on the internet. Yep. And this is for seasoned veterans that understand that industry.
Yeah. Humans that make
People.
mistakes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've been in this game for 30 years and I still click on the phishing links sometimes. But there's certain things you can do to try to mitigate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, look, totally agree. And I think it's absolutely inevitable that it's going to filter down to anyone dealing with the public. And it really has to, because a lot of businesses hold that information. If I can say to you, if you're holding information that belongs to your clients that you don't need to hold, oh my gosh.
Don't it?
Yeah, don't, only hold what you need to, and get some professional advice and assistance in that space, because we know what we're hearing about is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
So this is here to stay. It's going to impact our businesses. So it's just another thing we have to do.
Yeah.
And I really think there's going to be licensing around it, or regulations around it, and it's going to impact our insurance. And
Certainly is already.
Yeah, I'm going to touch on cyber insurance just briefly. I'm glad you brought that up. So who here has cyber insurance or has started to investigate it? Have you read the T's and C's and what it does? Not much.
I wouldn't think so.
Right? Well, look, the point of the cyber insurance really is that because there's no regulations around there, everything is different. It's not going to protect you once that data's out the door. It's not going to pay the ransoms. It's not going to do anything beyond potentially help you recover in terms of the technical services and everything else you need, but it's not going to recover your brand. If you lost all of your customers' records and it set them up for a cybersecurity risk, phishing attacks or impersonation. If someone gets your driver's license, your birth date, your home address, etc., how easy is that to ring up a bank and say, "Hey, I'm Andy Prosser, etc." Right? How easy is that? Very easy, and we trust it all the time. Once you get that information out, you can't put it back in the bag.
Yeah, right.
Worse, Medibank, unfortunately, it's medical history. Can't change that.
No, it's devastating.
Cannot change that. You can change a driver's license number, but you can't change the fact that you had a broken leg 20 years ago.
Okay.
Sorry to scare you all, but...
No, I think it's something
you know,
we're all rather acutely aware of. Has anyone had a really big cyber breach in their business that they're bold enough to admit? I'm sure there's a lot of people. No? So every week...
Well, they can use that information to identify you. You can actually use all of your medical history to be able to pinpoint you personally, even if it's been anonymised, right? You had a broken leg at a particular time. Why do you think they use dental records to identify a body in a police case when there's nothing left?
No,
right?
you're going dark.
Yeah, I'm going dark, sorry. But, dental records is how they use to identify it, because that is records that can't be changed.
It's just, personal information,
It can be used for medical claims. It could be used, let's say, for example, someone was going through a particular medical procedure because they weren't happy with their gender, right? Now, that could be used to blackmail you, especially if you hadn't come out or explained to anyone else. That can be used, held against you. If you're in a position of power and you have access to sensitive information and you didn't want that information leaked, or told to your spouse or something like that,
Yeah, right.
that could be held against you. So that's where this information is very sensitive. Mental health, we need to talk about that more, but a lot of people try to hide that. And there's lots of other things that each person in this room have had or done or within their lives that I don't want anyone to know
Of
about.
course. Yeah, for
It's
sure.
privacy
Every
for a
week-
variety of reasons.
Yeah. So every week we have a team meeting on a Tuesday and all the advisors get together and we talk. One of the questions on the standing agenda is cybersecurity and risk. So what are small businesses feeding back to us on a daily basis about what they're experiencing? And some of those stories are pretty horrendous. So we're not here to fearmonger, but all we're asking is that people take the time to be more aware. And there's a lot of incredible supports, even in this room here tonight. Where's our lovely fellow cyber friend? Kristen, where's our cyber friend?
I was looking for it. I think you're back
Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. We'll introduce him when he comes back up the stairs.
Look, there's also a lot of really simple things you can do to try to mitigate some of this stuff. You know, putting logos on your systems so that when you log in, it's got your logo there. If you don't see the logo, it's not yours. You know, it helps with branding and ownership, but it also helps with security.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I just also add to that, and apart from the personal information and identity
Doom and
theft,
gloom.
which is huge. Adding to the doom and gloom, but it's just that business interruption stuff as well.
Yeah.
That's huge. So it doesn't have to be the extreme to really impact a business and stop a business in its tracks.
Kristen, could you bring the microphone over, please? Thanks.
No, I was just going to say that I'm surprised how few businesses start really thinking about, do I need this data? I mean, I think that should be the first question that we start asking. I mean, it's crazy that some of the data leaks that have happened, you think, why has that company actually asked for all that information?
Yeah.
And I mean, customers have to give it, and that's the problem. So it really is the responsibility of the organisation to say, do I really need that data?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You could say, do I need that data or do I need to hold that risk?
Yeah, but it also takes the other attitude of, I might need it later. And storage is so cheap. And so we just keep it because it's easy. It's actually easier to store data than it is to destroy it. You know, what if I destroy the wrong piece of information? What if I need that later? What if I need that in a legal case? What if I need to be able to prove something later? Or just putting it in there and writing the rules to go and delete that stuff after the fact when it's being used. That's more effort, that's more developer time, that's more money to spend.
Business owners, one thing they do not have is
Yeah.
time. Okay, let's move away from cyber.
Oh, that's a good subject.
I know, you're a bit passionate. We do. We've got lots of beer over there, for sure.
There's plenty of numbing substances.
So what other game changers, trends or points do you guys want to share tonight, if any?
Did you want to start on that?
Mine's a bit boring. I really think it's back to basics.
Yep.
I think really bring it back. What I've already shared with you, really bring it back, be really clear about what you want to get out of this business. And with all of you, regardless of if your business is really successful or mildly successful or, oh my gosh, unsuccessful, it's going to take a whole lot of you. So let's make sure, one, it's successful, but then let's make sure it's where you want to be. So let's really look at what you want to achieve out of this, and then look at where you're starting, and then we can have a look at all the different ways that you can get there. But it's about being clear about what you're offering, making sure you're in front of your customer, the people who care most about what you've got to offer, and that messaging and building those relationships. People like to spend money with people they know and trust.
Yeah.
So let's help them know us. Let's help them trust us, and that takes time to build. So I really think it's back to basics and just being a little bit kinder to ourselves. We don't have to do everything. We actually can't do everything, and watch those biases that we come with. Watch those things those assumptions that we're making that may have been set pre-COVID and have the understanding that, yeah, everything's just changed a little bit, but there's absolutely no reason we're still doing what we're doing, right? So we can continue to be successful and we can continue to get what we want.
Some of the best performing businesses can easily show that constant evolution of their business.
Exactly
The
right.
model, the products they offer, the value they offer.
Yep.
So it's keeping up with that product to market fit loop, keep testing, and of course keep innovating. It sounds super cheesy, but it is literally what we need to do to hold ourselves accountable for relevancy in business.
And listen to our customers. Oh my gosh, if you don't know what they want, ask them. Easy.
They'll tell you.
Yeah. We want
The
them
good
to.
ones will.
Feedback is a gift.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Whatever the feedback is, it's a gift. As long as it's qualified and it's from our customers.
Look, I mean, I think really when we look into 2023 and beyond, we're in a, from the last few years, and as we look towards what's happening towards 2030, especially when we go overseas and we look at what's happening in certain industries over there, can't buy anything that doesn't have an electric motor in it in Europe from 2030 onwards, right? So we're sitting on a massive point in time of opportunity, right? How you leverage that opportunity, how you restructure your organisation. Hybrid work is here to stay. Love it, hate it, otherwise doesn't matter. It's here to stay. How is that going to change your business? An example of this is a client was struggling to find a receptionist to go into her Sydney office. And the main reason is that she had two key tasks she wanted this person to do. One, answer phones. Two, open the mail, scan it and put it into the system. So I said, why don't you split that role? Then she could find someone wherever they were that were brilliant at answering phones, because I don't care where you are on the planet. The technology's there to allow you to answer a phone anywhere on the planet. And then outsource the letter opening and the scanning and then destruction of that information, because all you want is the digital copy. You don't care about the physical paper. Changed her mindset in terms of how she was sourcing that. Not only did she find the right person, someone actually in this case was in the Philippines that she'd already been working with, that saved her a massive amount of money in terms of the cost for that staff, but then outsourcing managed to accelerate her ability to process those letters.
All about capacity.
Yeah, change your thinking, challenge everything that you're doing and how you're doing it, and what opportunities there are. There aren't any boundaries anymore. The only boundary is you and your imagination. And back on the innovation, the best way to iterate and innovate, one change, test it, tweak it, test it, another change, etc. Because if a change doesn't work and you've only done one, it's easy to work out which one failed. If you do 100 changes at once, what was the cause of the problem? A lot of organisations spend a massive amount of energy making a big whole of business change and then go, well, that didn't work.
Yeah.
I can't work out why.
Now, throwing over to you guys, is there anything that you want to share from your area of expertise that you want people to be aware of in the next 12 months? What's your value?
Well, if we talk about basics, how can we convince people to go back towards a more sustainable lifestyle than they otherwise would be achieving at the moment, especially with the incentive of buying cheaper, but at the detriment of throwing it away after only a short period of time?
I think that apart from it being people's personal choice, there is an incredibly strong movement, particularly in Newcastle, to support the circular economy. So the more businesses that learn about how they can play a part in their business becoming more involved in that space, I think it'll increase the awareness of what that true value back is to a customer. Yep. Thank you.
There's a couple of other metrics, and this is coming back from enterprise and corporate speak, right? Things like total cost of ownership and return on investment. We don't talk about that a lot in business in terms of...
We do.
Oh, look, some of the clients I've been talking about, no, they don't. They're not thinking about that. They're not talking about that.
Yeah, right.
They're just talking about value, but they're not putting it against numbers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right?
It's crazy.
They're not putting it against those numbers of saying, if I spend $100 now, what's the value to that over 10 years? Or I spend $1,000. They're just looking at it at the moment.
that
Yeah.
immediate.
Yeah, a great example was a small organisation, 6 people in it, wanted to go buy a massive CRM system, was going to cost them $80,000 to put in. I said, well, how long is that going to take you to pay it back? They hadn't thought about it. They hadn't thought about it. Instead, they went back and just upped the service on the things they already had, they were already using, and cost them $150 a month extra to get what they needed.
Always apply the numbers.
Oh,
The
yeah.
numbers do not lie.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You've got to do the numbers for sure.
And if you can
Yep.
present that back to your clients or to the people who are trying to buy and say, well, don't spend $10 on that thing that you're going to chuck out tomorrow. Spend $100 on this that you're going to keep for 10 years. You know, when was the last time you threw out your fridge? You know, they used to last 20, 30 years. Now they might last 5, right? But, you know, what can you do to try to improve that? Or buy second hand. My wife loves
Can I
shopping.
say something on
yeah.
that? High tea with Mrs. Wu.
Yeah.
They what they do now, they've started this. I know I don't know the Japanese word, kanisi or whatever it is, of stitching. So when you get a hole or a tear in your jacket, like as in we go, oh, stuff that, throw it out, buy a new one. They talk about slow manufacturing and thinking about your product and the hands that made it and care for it. And they do this special sort of stitching to make it look kind of cool. So some of the clothes they got have got like these funny gold stitching patches
Yeah,
here
it's
and
beautiful.
there. It's because
Love it.
they want to keep that garment.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is. Yeah, it's,
Yeah, the cobbler that repairs your shoes. That's gone out of fashion. Your shoes break and you get a new pair. You know, what are the opportunities? That's talking to the value, right?
It is.
How can you present the value to someone where they go, why wouldn't I spend that $1,000 on that product? It seems stupid not to.
Thank you. Okay. Well, we need to finish up this portion of the night, unfortunately, before we move on to the next part. So I just want to thank Andy Prosser. Thank you for your tech insights. It's so obvious how passionate you are about it. It cracks me up. And Paulina Mangano. This woman's pretty unique. The way she sees business through the lens of strategy and implementation is really quite rare. So thank you.
Thank you for your generosity. Thanks,
Thank
Brooke.
you. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
So on behalf of the team at the Business Centre and the Business Connect team as well, thanks for being here, or thanks for watching if you're watching this recording. And if you need any business support, of course, just Google Business Connect, New South Wales, and they'll hook you up with a business concierge who'll put you in touch with us. So our team's always here to help, and they're all across New South Wales, so you're not shy of help there.